Can you explain your view of whether Ethereum is a security or not? I think you've actually suggested it isn't, but then why you believe that Ripple is a security. And I know there's an ongoing lawsuit related to Ripple, but could you speak to the Ethereum issue?
Andrew, just to have a little fun with you, refer back to my earlier question. I'm not going to speak to any one matter. And so your listeners understand it. I'm the chair of a 5-member commission that's also a civil law enforcement agency. And so we don't get involved in these types of public forums talking about any one project, one possible circumstance, and give legal advice over the airways that way. But again, let me talk about more generically the overall market. If you're raising money from the public and the public is in anticipation of profit based upon that promoter, sponsor, that group's efforts, that's within the securities laws. And it's within the securities laws because Congress painted with a broad brush. They wanted to protect you, the investing public, so that you have proper information, or what's called full and fair information, and protect you against fraud and scammers and the like. It's a simple, basic idea. You get to decide whether you want to invest in this security or that security. And if they call themselves a token, they're still possibly a security. You get to decide, but there needs to be some basic disclosures and protection against lies and frauds.
Chair Gensler, this sounds like a pretty important distinction and maybe a new way of thinking of these markets. This is kind of a new, broad framework that would open the way for the SEC to maybe have a lot more say over a lot of arenas. And you start thinking about all the different ways investors, I mean, I'm just going back a year to where we were a year ago at this point. It was SPACs that were the huge rage that everybody was kind of interested in, and the new way of taking a company public through these acquisition vehicles. And what you're talking about is making sure that you are looking at broad protections because there are so many retail investors that are maybe investing in a different way than they had in the past. Is that kind of what we're listening to here? This sounds like a fairly important statement.
It is important. Part of it's new and part of it's old. It's like that old saying about when one gets married. So the new part is the new technology, whether it's crypto tokens, whether it's special purpose acquisition companies or SPACs. These are something new. There are new ways to trade on the markets through brokerage apps and robo-advisors and like. That's what's new. But what's kind of old and really important is this basic idea that if you raise money from the public and the public's thinking about a profit, you've got to give them basic disclosures and everything. And that goes back to the 1930s. It goes back to when the Supreme Court defined this test in 1946. That's the important public policy thing that we should not be neutral to. And then the technologies come along and they promote innovation, whether it's crypto, whether it's a new form of doing initial public offerings through these SPACs. That's exciting. Our role at the SEC is to ensure that you, the public, still gets the basic protections.
If I'm the industry, though, I hear that as you guys are laying the groundwork for getting involved in a lot of areas that you maybe hadn't been necessarily closely involved in the past. This is the justification for why you are going to be overseeing all of these different arenas. Is that an unfair
Becky,
assessment?
I beg to just differ with that description.
Yeah.
The SEC has been involved in these arenas since the 1930s. It's been updated. Our laws have been updated often, and staying within that framework, those public policy frameworks of the public gets to decide, but we try to have basic disclosures and protect the public. New technologies come along, and sometimes industry is trying to find what they might think ways around these basic protections. They might be finding ways to, quote, arbitrage the system.